All right, everyone, agenda, meeting for items 1 and 2 tax, call the meeting to order. I'm gonna ask Mr. Clark to say the pledge and Mr. Beard to say the prayer, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, item number 3, board review. A is Connecticut Gator Energy LLC, B Alliance Offshore LLC. Which one are you gonna start off with?
And that's Connecticut. We received a protest from Connecticut Gator, assessment number 12000007895.
Do they have anybody present?
No one seems to be here, Mr. Curtis.
All right. Okay, we proceed.
It's Connecticut is the one that's following the protest. They should be here to say why.
I understand. Okay. Carson, you got anything?
I can tell you what we use to assess Connecticut.
Carson, please, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you.
To assess personal property, we use the cost less depreciation approach, which I have included in your documents. On number 3,
I'm sorry?
it's number 3. Let me start from the top. First, you're going to have a protest that was turned in by Connecticut.
You said page 3?
No, sir. No, sir. Start under.
We don't have them
We
numbered
don't
by
have
page.
pages.
You don't have tax, so it'd be the third,
It'd be the cardboard.
Card stop.
Card stop. The second one is the protest. For Connecticut appeal.
Can I ask you what, the protest, they want?
They're protesting that they wasn't utilizing the full potential of the plant. In other words, they're claiming that their plant is designed for 300 million cubic feet a day. When they admit that due to compressor configuration, it can only pass 120,000 million cubic feet a day. They bought this plant last year in April 29th of last year from Plains Gas Solutions.
Okay, is this the same one that we had?
The same one we had last.
Okay.
Right. Last year, they wouldn't provide us with a purchase agreement. They provided us a purchase agreement that was redacted. The purchase price was not included in there. Okay, we went before the tax commission, and the tax commission ruled in their favor. The tax commission also stated for 2016, the purchase price was not relevant because it had passed the January 1 status, where Plains owned it. This year, for 17, they said it would be pertinent to the assessment.
The tax commission said that?
Yes, sir. It's in here. It's the,
Very last section, 7.
Okay.
okay.
So what they're saying is they're not using the whole plant, so they don't want to pay taxes on the whole plant?
They're saying they're not passing the gas that is designed for. They saying it's designed for 300,000 cubic feet a day. Okay? But because of compressor configuration, which is, I don't know whose fault that is, evidently it's theirs because it wasn't configured right, it can only run 120,000 per day.
And that's what they want their taxes to be set on, 120,000.
They want some obsolescence because they can't flow at their full capacity, because they're not flowing at their full capacity. Okay?
Orson, can I ask you one thing? Did you work with these people on the taxes and give them any obsolescence yet?
Not for this year. We gave them depreciation
Are they protesting this year's or previous?
this year.
Just this year? And how did we come up with the numbers? Did you use their numbers that they said they run through the plant, or how does it work?
I used their numbers that they reported to us.
Right. And you taxed them on the amount that they're saying they're running?
We're using the cost approach. Whatever their reported cost was, less depreciation. And one of the reasons, if you look at my summary,
But are you going off of the 300,000, or are you going off of the 120,000, whatever?
what I'm saying is the reason their numbers are so much larger or lower than ours is because they're using that 300 million cubic feet a day,
And they're producing 120.
and when they can only flow 120.
So they're using the 300, they only flowing 120. But they're using the three, and they're complaining, they're saying that they can't do the 300.
They can't do 300. In their admission that they can't do 300 million cubic feet a day because the way the compressors are configured, they can't flow to the 120.
And who told you all this information?
Connecticut.
Okay. So, what is the figures that we're looking at right now?
Right now, we have Connecticut at 5,153,933 market value. They want it lowered to 1,969,268.
They want to go from 5 million to 968?
No, to 1,000,009.
1 million. Okay, almost 2 million.
Right at 3 million.
But that's just a number they threw out at you right now.
Show them this.
I'm-
they can
I'm-
look at it.
$3 million difference there.
So the reps, I'm looking on this one, this one shows revenue, it shows the revenues for, 13 through 16. BGS in 13 was 8,272,000. 14 was 3,900,000. 15 was 2,600,000. And 16, Connecticut is showing 9 million.
Yes.
And you assessed them to 5 million.
Right.
And they want to go down to 1.9 million.
Right. That's their reported revenue. It took over, this stems back to originally when planes, well, I can't discuss planes.
If you go to the second tab, second part under Connecticut's, if you go to the second part, you can see Connecticut's rendition and explaining why they're requesting obsolescence.
Where you at?
So where you at?
If you go to the, sorry, we don't have tab numbers on here.
What's the top of the page that you're on?
It's going to be their actual assessment, this right here. And then their renditions
Okay.
and stuff is behind it. So
from 2011 to 2013.
No, that is page,
The third part, Scott. You see, after one,
It would have their actual assessment.
it's the one that's got the letter in the back of it saying, Mr. Billings, please find attachment back.
That's it. That's
That's what
it.
you're talking about,
Yes, sir.
okay?
And that's what, this is their request to Orson, asking for obsolescence and explaining why. So if you they're telling us the plant is designed for 300 million cubic feet a day. However, with the current compressor configuration, the plant could only move 120,000 million cubic feet a day. They claim the utilization is 20%, 20.9% of design capacity. And that's what they're basing their obsolescence on. They want us to give it a 40% good factor.
40%. Good, let me ask one other thing, so, have you given any,
I have not given them any.
haven't given-
Have you seen anybody out there verify that they only can move 120 million?
No, sir, I have no way of.
Yeah,
I mean,
concrete company, do that, yeah.
Who determines what can the plant actually process?
You'd have to see what kind of compressors they are, because compressors can be tweaked by adding cylinder or knocking cylinder. You can adjust the amount of gas flowing through by screwing in on the pockets or changing valves. And he's got 6 units there.
Yeah,
With 6 compressors tweaking that valve, you can almost get it to 300,000.
I don't think all, I think you.
That's true too, you know.
Okay, Mr. Orson. So they're asking you, did you followed all your policy? You followed all the,
Yes,
everything you
sir.
needed to get to this number?
Yes, sir.
And what is that number?
Market value of $5,153,933.
And you tax, your tax for them would be the 1.9?
No, that's there, that's what they wanted to
Is
do.
that's what we have it at. They want us to lower it.
To 1,969,000.
So you assess, you tax them at 5, but they want 1.9.
Right.
And you assessed them at 120 million, not 300 million cubic feet a day.
No, I used that as a basis they're claiming that it was 500 million cubic feet, not 300 million cubic feet a day when it's actually not. It's 120,000 million cubic feet a day.
No, the question is, though, did you assess them at the 120, or did you assess them?
No,
at the
we
320?
don't assess by the cubic feet. I assessed them at the full 120.
Well, 120, not the 320.
Right. In other words, I didn't give them any
So you,
obsolescence for it.
actually, you give them a break, because you didn't assess them at the 320, which it says that the plant can do,
No,
right?
no. The way we assess this particular, or these personal property, machinery and equipment is at cost less depreciation. If you look at the very first page
Okay,
with the assessment, we've got the year that it was acquired, the cost, the economic life, and the cost multiplier, which we're saying it depreciated 18%, because we're getting at an 82% good factor. And that's what we did for every piece of equipment that they put out there.
Carson, what you've done in the past with this same company, is this a new company, a new deal, or is this the same old fight we have every year?
This is the second year.
second year, yeah, because I remember we did this last year.
And what was the remedy for last year?
Last year, the tax commission ruled in their favor.
And so they protest under that,
assessed
if
it.
y'all, that they have an option, if y'all vote to uphold the assessors, you know, that taxpayer can, he'll go to the tax commission to appeal.
So there's no negotiating here.
Yeah.
Can you negotiate with companies
Yeah,
on taxes?
Yes, we can.
yeah. You don't negotiate the taxes, you may agree on an assessment.
An obsolescence or something.
Obsolescence.
Did they,
But what I'm basing this on is their purchase agreement when they bought the plant. I did receive a unredacted purchase agreement that has the sale price of what they bought the plant for in April of 2016. They paid $2.5 million up front at the date they signed, plus payouts for the minimum amount of
You base your assessment off the sale and purchase of,
no, sir, I based my obsolescence,
or your obsolescence is based off of that?
yes. They pay 2.5 at the time of the sale. And they get plus total earn-out payments of no less than 2.7 million and no more than 7.5 million. So the total amount that they could be paying for this facility is anywhere between 5.2 and $10 million. And they want us to assess it for $1.9 million.
My thing is, if you assess these people properly, if you assess them using the proper, resources that you're supposed to use, I don't have a problem. I don't see us changing this. I don't see us
I think we're.
going against them at all.
Mr. Fountain, just, portion, I mean, if last year, if the tax commission agreed that, you know, just reading here through their they agreed that additional obsolescence should have been granted, is this a different, would they possibly use the same, reasoning this year? If they,
If you look at the last,
What did they pay last year?
last year, the tax commission, when they appealed it after our board review, they agreed with the taxpayer and they, agreed with the assessment of 1.8 million. And I was just wondering, would we have the same thing this year?
Would that, you give them that obsolescence every year?
yes,
We give it to them last year, right?
That was a different situation.
that was the ruling.
You had a
That
purchase,
was,
you had a purchase, right? Last year.
We agreed with the assessor's assessment
Assessment.
last year. They went to the tax commission and appealed it, and the tax commission agreed with the taxpayer. No, and so this year, I'm just wondering if we would have the same, you know, if he feels this might be the same thing.
if you look at the last section, where it has the Louisiana Tax Commission decision. Referring
Last
to
section you said, Mr. Orson?
the last one. And you look at the bottom of the page. For purpose of property taxation, the assessor and the commission are entitled to the sale agreement. While the sales price should not be a basis for the assessment of the property, it is useful information for the assessor to review in the appraisal process. In any event, the sale took place on May 1st, 2016, well past the valuation date of January 1st, 2016. The sale agreement will not be relevant for 2017 assessment purposes.
Will be,
Ma'am?
will be,
Oh.
for 17.
Oh, I'm sorry. This sale agreement will be relevant for 2017 assessment purposes The sale, however, is not relevant for purposes of the 2016 assessment of the subject property.
So that's the difference between last year and what.
Right, last year they didn't feel
What we went through last year.
Yes.
They wouldn't give us any sale price. They had it redacted. They had this agreement, the purchase agreement, where all the sale prices were, all the prices paid was not included. And if you look at
We're
this,
supported enough with this cap to send somebody up there to come talk with us. I think we ought to leave it alone. Instead of rolling dice with the tax commissioner. They counsel and even we'll go over our people. You might even get that important to them, to send somebody up here to come try and talk with us. On the revenue sheet, it shows they made over 9 million, and expenses almost 8 million. Did they add on to the plan or something?
I really don't know what they did.
I mean, where they come up with $8 million in expenses?
This stems from something that happened with the previous owner of the company.
Yeah, but that's not this company.
Yeah, but they took on, they probably bought it, they took on the responsibility of the previous owner.
It's public record that we presented this to y'all last year. Yeah,
So they can roll the dice, if they go to the tax commission and say you're gonna just pay me $2 million, that's over with.
Tax commission gonna settle this.
Okay.
right.
Well, this is just my opinion. I'm gonna go with Mr. Orson on this. I don't see anything he's done wrong now. Their numbers confuse me. I'm agreeing with her. So that's just my opinion. Anybody else got something to say? Somebody need to make a motion. Somebody need to make a motion.
A motion we go with the Cameron assessors.
I have a motion by Mr. Dupont to go with the assessor's judgment, and I have a second by Mr. Falk. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Alliance Offshore LLC.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Eric Trostweiler. I'm the General Counsel of Alliance Offshore. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to come here and present our appeal to you today. I apologize, I don't know all of your names, and my eyesight doesn't allow me to see your name played, so I apologize, I won't know the names, but this is the first time I've been in front of the, I'll sit if that's okay.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh, yes, ma'am, right there,
It
get
don't
close
make
to
no
that
difference.
mic.
Don't know our name. We call different things all the time.
You get the mic close, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. This isn't we have asked for a reassessment of two watercrafts, a lift boat and an OSV, that were taxed for the 2017 tax year in Cameron Parish. And I kind of go through the history of why we're asking for it, what's the current assessment and why we disagree with it. And it's all some of the things that that y'all have talked about in this previous case that you've addressed, and a couple of things that are different. The primary reason that I'm here asking for a reassessment is and it goes to the history of Alliance Offshore. Alliance Offshore was a vessel holding company up until about 2011. It became an operating company. We operate our own vessels. We have our marketing contracts. We have the customers. We have the personnel. We don't work through brokers as far as being a silent owner. We operate our vessels. In 2011, the company acquired 4 lift boats and operated 4 lift boats, and then decided to grow. And I was actually hired in 2012 as the general counsel of the company to quickly grow the company. So, and you can look back at the timing of this and with hindsight, but from 2011 we went from 4 vessels. In spring of 2014 we grew to 23 vessels, 13 lift boats, 5 crew boats, 5 OSVs. We acquired all those vessels in that time. We purchased all but 2. In 2013, we built 2 200-class lift boats at Conrad Shipyard. And what's the significance of that? Well, if you know about the industry was doing quite well as far as marine transportation, oil field service industry. 2010, 2011, all the way to 2014, the industry was in very good financial condition. Everything was fine. The price of oil was over $100 a barrel. There was a lot of work on the shelf, which is primarily what our vessels service, the shallow water shelf of Gulf of Mexico. In 2014, that changed dramatically. As you know, the price of oil dropped. It got all the way down at some point to $28 a barrel. Our customers, which are the E&P companies that operate in the Gulf of Mexico, slashed their budgets. Vessels were released all across the Gulf. We had basically had to fight to keep our customers. We had to, as the market rates for our vessels went down, we had to go down with them. And the end result of that is we've held on, we've kept our people employed, and we're still in business today after 4 years of this downturn. But it's been a challenge, and we've lost significant money along the way. We've had layoffs. We've unfortunately had to stack some vessels. But we've been fighting. We have the majority of our fleet is still operating. We still employ 120 people at Alliance Offshore. If you incorporate some affiliated companies that do some well services things, we, as an alliance as a whole, employs almost 250 people. So we're hanging on, we're trucking along, we're trying to get through this downturn. So how is all that relevant to this assessment? Well, as you know, because you've discussed it, is that these assessments are based on the price you pay for your vessel, and then there's a depreciation schedule over time. All right, well, let's take the 2 vessels that have been assessed for taxes here in Camden Parish. The Baton Rouge is the lift boat. It's a 200 class lift boat. We bought it from Monaco Offshore in 2013. At the time we bought that vessel, it and a sister ship, another 200 class lift boat, which we bought at the same time, had been working continuously for Apache. Remember that company that used to work in the Gulf? For about 4 years, and we didn't have a written contract, but we're assured that Apache would keep those vessels on for the next 3 years at the time we purchased them. The average day rate, and I provided some of this information, and I'll go through the documents I submitted as well later. But the average day rate of that vessel, or those vessels for Apache, depending on how many workers were on the vessel and being housed in those things, because those are incremental charges, went anywhere from $14,000 to $17,000 a day. It with 100% utilization other than maintenance times. So those are the circumstances in which we purchased the vessel. So the price of the vessel was $10 million. Under all of those things considered, we thought it was a great price at the time. We bought 2 of them. We thought it was such a good price. Well, if you know, Apache has now sold all its assets to Fieldwood. Fieldwood has been suffering the downturn. Those vessels no longer have extended work. They're on the spot market. The rate for the average day rate, which I provided that information for 2014, 2015, 2016, and what's available for 17. The average day rate has dropped about 50 to 55% for that vessel. And if you know the profit margin in the vessel for vessel work is not 65%. It's in good times it was 30 to 35%. So if you lose 55% of your gross income, you can just imagine what's that going to do to the profit and the cash flow from that vessel. We operated that vessel through the downturn at massive losses. There's no other way to say it. The vessel was ultimately stacked in April of this year. So it's available we can put it back to work if things turn around. At this point, who knows, my optimism on a turnaround in our industry is starting to fade as the years go by. So with that said, so when you fill out the tax forms for the vessel, okay, so it asks you what you paid for the vessel and when you acquired it. We paid $10 million, no dispute. Paid $10 million for the vessel, we acquired it in 2013. So what do you end up with? You end up with a I think $6 or so million fair market value on the vessel, right? On that particular vessel, Mr. Billings has granted a 20% obsolescence, and we end up with a fair market value of about $5.9 million. And look, I wish I could sit here and tell you that boat's worth $5.9 million. It's no way. No, it's just so bad. These vessels basically do not change hands anymore. There's no market for them. There are no buyers. There's plenty of sellers, but there are no buyers. So how do we figure out what the fair market value is as of January 1st, 2017 under these market conditions? Obviously, the world we live in now is totally in opposite of the world we lived in 2013 when we bought that vessel. So what I did was I went to, and I've done this before in 2015, I went to a reputable vessel surveyor and appraiser, Rivers and Gulf, you may have heard them. They've been around for a long time. And in 2015, I asked for an appraisal of the Baton Rouge. And his opinion in that year was the vessel was worth $1 million. Which to somebody who was a part of a company that paid $10 million, it's a pretty pill to swallow, right? I don't want to tell you how much we owe them. We financed these purchases, by the way, so we owe far more than that on these vessels. But that's what an expert says the fair market value is. So this year, when we started discussing this assessment with Mr. Billings, I went and got another follow-up appraisal, and I have those documents here for you, but the follow-up appraisal came back at $9,500,000. And I do have a letter to Mr. Billings outlining some of this, which I've included in our request. And I made there's a typo in it.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hang on one second,
Yes.
before I get lost here. You're saying you have an appraisal of $1 million,
In 2015. Yes.
and then you just got another appraisal and it's $9 million.
No, I'm sorry, 900,000. 950,000. Did I say 9
You
million?
confused me because you said
Yeah.
9 million.
Well, thank you for correcting me. I will,
One second, Marvin, where do you get your appraisal from? On these boats? How you get your figure?
We use the cost less depreciation, and we get obsolescence for days work, economic obsolescence.
Okay, so this vessel worked 261 days last year.
Yes, yes.
Is that correct?
and I'd like to address that because what Mr. Billings is using is a schedule that the tax commission is going to use in future tax years. It's not binding upon us now, but it's out there, and I haven't actually got a chance to review it, but I've talked to several assessors about it. And so what it does is it says, okay, if your vessel is stacked and not working, we're going to give you this much reduction. If it's worked a certain percentage of the year, this reduction, this reduction. And so while that's going to be binding, it could be binding upon us in future years. It's not binding on us now. And it's significant because in 2016, the Baton Rouge worked. We put it to work. Why were we working? We weren't making any money. I worked that vessel to keep the crew employed. And to keep the vessel up, and I'm hoping for a turnaround. In 2018, and I have a real issue with the way that the tax commission is setting this up, because in 2018, if I know I'm going to have to pay a tax if I work the vessel more than 300 days, and I do it at a loss or break-even rate just to keep my crew employed, I'm going to be penalized for that by the tax commission. I think that's bad policy, but we're not here to debate that. That's not even binding upon us right now.
Okay, hang on a second.
Yes, sir.
Please. How much does this boat make a day?
Let's see. I have that information available for you. I'll give you the Baton Rouge. In 2017, in January, it averaged $6,800 a day. In February, it averaged $6,200 a day. In January of 14, $201 a day. In March of 2014, it averaged $16,611 a day.
Let me ask you this. How much does it cost you to operate that vessel a day?
Between $4,000 and $5,000 a day, depending on crew, because certain crew members make more than others. Other types of things. What kind of operation is it? Are we using cranes? We haven't, how much consumables are we using? So about between $4,000 and $5,000 a day.
So your request is to, your estimated taxes, coming on, $123,720. Is that correct?
What is, you talking about what the taxes we owe?
The taxes that he's requesting to be dropped.
I don't have a tax bill, I do have the assessment.
Assessed value. I think it just goes with
So
that.
the fair market value of the vessel as we stand today, and what we're appealing,
Okay.
is $5,920,000. And what I'm asking for is an assessment in line with the appraisal that I've gotten from Rivers and Gulf. And the appraisal in 2015 was $1 million, and the one that I have for 2017 is $50,000 less than $1,950,000. And again, so let me put a little bit more color on this. So the 20% has been offered, and that's how we get to the 5.9, or has been applied. Other parishes, or we have vessels all over the state, obviously, and other parishes are doing more like 50% or more. For instance, this particular vessel, the Baton Rouge, was taxed last year in Vermilion Parish, and the original assessment was $4.7 million. After pleading our case similar to this with the tax assessor, we got an obsolescence application to that value and brought it down to $1.1 million, which was a little bit more than the appraisal that I had, but I thought it was fair. And so I ended up paying a tax of around $18,000 on the vessel. That was last year. So, and you see why I'm here now, is I'm staring down over $100,000 tax bill where we sit now. So I just don't think that's fair. In fact, we did have a vessel in Cameron Parish last year that I got a similar 20% reduction, it was one vessel, in this case it's two, obviously. And we didn't appeal it, we accepted it, and the tax bill I got was $83,000 on one vessel, was the lift boat Lafayette, which we paid. And one of the reasons we had more funds available to us last year than we do this year, which is one of the reasons that we paid it. But the next highest tax bill I had was on the vessels that we built, the 2013, I'll call those the flagship of our fleet. The tax bill on those vessels were $29,000. So I paid almost 3 times as much on the Lafayette, which is a 13-year-old, smaller, cheaper vessel. So they're kind of trying to shoot for some unity or some consistency amongst the parishes, which we didn't seem to get.
Can I ask you a couple questions here?
Sure.
You keep bringing up 2014, you bring up all these other vessels. We're discussing 2016.
Sure, I absolutely understand that, yes, sir.
I wish you would stick to this vessel.
Yes.
You tell us what you made in 14, what you make in 16?
Let's see. I do have a vessel profit and loss statement that I provided to the tax assessor. In 2000, this is on the vessel level, all right, so it's the vessel's profit and loss statement. In 2016, the Baton Rouge, 2 ways to look at it. If you count depreciation, the vessel lost $826,000.
I want to know what it made revenue.
Okay, revenue. Income, $2 million.
Okay. And you're going to use the loss for tax purposes. Right?
The loss, yes, I mean, it's a real loss.
All the losses, the $800,000,
Yeah.
they're going to use against your taxes to
Yes.
prove the loss.
If you do not include depreciation on the vessel, so depreciation is a tax term, right? It's counted as an expense, but it's not necessarily cash out of the company. So if you take the depreciation completely out of the equation and say just look at the income of the vessel and what we actually paid out in expenses.
And if you pay...
The vessel made $73,000.
You paid $10 million for this boat in 13.
Yes, sir.
4 years later, it's only worth $900,000. Would you sell it today for $900,000?
I would not be allowed to. Our banks are not allowed to.
Okay.
Would I sell it for $5.9 million? Absolutely, I'd sell 2 of them.
If you was to sell it at $909,000, you would have one heck of a loss.
Yes,
to
sir.
go against your tax bill, right?
There would be a write-down at some point, yes.
Okay. I just don't know how they come up with a number of a 4-year-old boat that's going to drop.
The boat's not 4 years old, it's 14 years old. We
14
bought it in 2013.
Oh, we're talking about the Baton Rouge right now.
Yes, sir. It was built in 2004,
Okay.
I believe.
And what would be the...
Oh, I'm sorry, no, the boat is actually 20 years old. It was 1997.
What is the depreciation on the Baton Rouge? Is it totally depreciated out?
No, sir. Well, we started with new depreciation when we purchased the vessel. So when we paid $10 million for it, we start with $10 million, and I think the IRS allows a 15-year schedule on a vessel. So we're depreciating that $10 million down to a scrap value over 15 years.
Okay.
And so if you take depreciation out and don't count that in our profit and loss statement, the vessel made $73,000 in 2016. And I have this information available for you. I had provided some of it before. A couple of things in this book were not included in my submission.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
Sure.
Mr. Billings, how did you come up with $5.9 million?
We used the cost, less depreciation, and gave him obsolescence for days work.
How is the number so far off of depreciation on this boat? Why is he giving us a number and almost
Why?
5 million away from your figures? How,
He got a desktop valuation. I'm not really familiar with those, but I figured if you pay 10 million in 4 years,
basically a prorated tax?
I really don't know where that figure come from, I'll be honest. This is the way we've done the boats, as long as I can remember. Well, long before I went to work there.
I mean, I'm just at a loss of 920,000 to $5.9 million. That's $5 million difference there. That's a big difference.
And if I can explain that, and it's because the boats cannot turn profit. So what value do they have? Remember, we're valuing them now. So we did pay $10 million for the vessels in 2013, and I kind of went through some color on why that was. Had been working for the same customer for 3 years, had 3 years left to go, not written commitment, but verbal commitment from the customer. Very good day rates, produced a nice profit margin. You factor all that in, and when you buy the vessel, you pay a multiple. So that vessel could make $2 million a year in profit. It's okay to pay the owner of the vessel a couple of years multiple on its profit in order to buy that vessel. And that's how the assets are bought in good times. Where we're at now is there's no profit that can be turned.
And that's business, right?
It is, and I'm not saying that this is a tax or an assessment that would apply every year. All right, what I'm saying is where we are now, value the vessel January 1st, 2017, and this is where we are. It's just an unfortunate situation. I mean, I have to live with the fact that we built this company at the worst possible time. I have to answer the banks that we
Mr.
can't
Chairman, I
pay.
got one question for the gentleman,
Yes, sir.
please. Have you been taxed anywhere else besides Cameron Parish? Anywhere your boats work, have you been taxed anywhere else?
Oh, yes, sir. We pay taxes all across the state.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it completely different? Have you been taxed, let's say, let's lose down east in New Orleans maybe, or somewhere, another port?
Yes, we get taxed in Plaquemines Parish, St. Charles Parish.
Okay, what's the difference? Did you get a,
Yes, sir. In 2016, the tax bill for the Baton Rouge was 17 and change, almost $18,000. That was right there in Vermilion Parish.
for Baton Rouge?
This is very. I have the bill here. I actually have the assessment in these documents.
Both Baton Rouge.
Yeah, it's not in Baton Rouge. The boat.
Yeah,
No, that's what
I'm sorry for the
confusion.
confusion. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well,
The assessment.
the better would be the assessment.
The assessment.
Yes, sir.
Million in it?
I have the assessment right here from Mr. Gabe Marceau. He originally assessed the vessel at $4.7 million. He applied obsolescence and reduced it by $3.5 million to a final assessment value of $1,191,000.
For the Baton Rouge?
For the Baton Rouge, yes,
For
sir.
the vessel Baton Rouge?
I have the documents right.
And then what was your assessed value?
The assessed value, $178,650.
1,000,007.
No.
No, that's what he
The
adjusted.
assessed value is 15% of the fair market value. So that number is $178,650.
So the I'm trying to understand the market value here is higher than Baton Rouge. I mean, or in Vermilion.
The market, the assessment here is 5 times higher than I got in Vermilion last year. Yes.
How can that be?
But his original assessment was $4 million and something,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
He adjusted the obsolescence. He applied obsolescence to the level of, let's see, yeah, his original assessment was $4.7 million, but he applied obsolescence and came out with a final assessment of $1.1 million. I'm just
I have a
reading
question.
this.
Was it for days work? Did it work less days?
Why they gave the opposite.
For 15?
No, it wasn't
Did
based
did
on
for
days worked
16?
at all. It was based
No?
on the appraisal of the vessel.
Okay.
Remember, this days work thing is something that's going to be new and applied going forward.
We've been given obsolescence for days work for
I
years.
can tell you that's not statewide. Other parishes don't do that.
Yeah, other parishes, I know of other parishes that use the same day's work schedule as we do, and it's actually for the same amount of days. It's the same schedule for rigs. We use it, St. Mary uses it, Terrebonne uses it, we're not the only ones that use it.
And again, my issue with that, and we're not here to debate that, is that I, as a boat company, trying to keep my employees employed, if I choose to work a vessel at its cost or right below its cost, just to get the jobs and keep the people working, and I work and I have their days worked, right, they all count the same, I'm being penalized at the end of the year and getting a higher tax bill when I was just trying to keep people employed. I think that's a bad policy, but again, we're not here to work.
So
Here you have discretion.
y'all have been appealing y'all's taxes to more than just us?
Yes, sir.
Every parish?
Every parish. But, well, some of the parishes have voluntarily done the obsolescence at a higher rate than 20%. Terrebonne is doing 50%. And I just accepted that. I'm not going to ask for more than 50%.
Okay, all right. Mr. Orton. All right, so tell me what Cameron Parish is asking this boat company to pay.
What their taxes would be?
Yes,
I
sir.
don't know what their taxes would be, I can tell you what the value would be.
I mean, you taxing them on the 5.9 million?
Yes. Well, no, I'm taxing them on the purchase price of 10 million. Less depreciation for age.
And this boat is how old? 20 years old.
Remember that depreciation is based on when you purchase the vessel, not
And when
the
you
actual,
purchased the vessel,
in 2013.
and you paid 10 million? and-
Yes, sir. Paid $10 million in
I
2013.
asked that while ago, you said, no, the boat's 14 years old.
The boat is 14 years old, but the depreciation
You paid $10
schedule,
million for
right, and so that's the starting point, right?
it. In 4 years, you wanted to drop to $900,000.
That is the third-party expert appraisal. That is not my number. If we were
But you would not sell it
negotiating a
for
sale of the vessel, I maybe would disagree with the 900,000.
But you would not sell it for 920,000.
No, sir.
You probably wouldn't sell it for less than 5 million.
No, sir, absolutely not. I would have to get bank approval, but there would certainly be a sale for less than $5 million.
I don't have the millage rate for it.
Wait, what's that?
We don't have anything to do with the taxes,
No,
it's
we're
just
not.
the value.
All we do is value the property.
Yeah, I mean, the tax rates, it depends on the
Okay, so
millage rate.
what am I looking at right here? I got a sheet in front of me that says LA Baton Rouge purchased for 10 million in 2013. It goes down through here, it says it worked 261 days in 2016. Then down here it says with the additional 20% obsolescence for days work, we have calculated the value to be. And I have a 5.9, and then I have a 888,000. And I have estimated taxes of 146. And then you go on down here, they're requesting we change this following for desktop valuation to 920, AB 138, estimated taxes 22,764.
123,000 less.
Yeah.
The red.
And if I can put that in perspective, that $147,000 is twice as much money as the boat made in 2016. And it's stacked now, so it's not making anything. It's very burdensome.
We understand that.
Yeah, this comes from the protester, those numbers
Okay.
he's
Well, that's
estimating
also
the
the
tax.
numbers I'm looking at though.
So if I'm
No, I didn't
looking,
estimate that.
No.
No, I did not.
This came from our
This
office.
came from your office?
Mhm.
I have no way to know the villages and things like that.
on the personal property tax form, you originally assessed this at $7.4 million, less 20%. And brought it to 5.9 million.
Yes,
So
Yes.
originally it said appraised at or whatever at 7.4 million.
and then you
And you give them
you give them
20%.
20%.
And brought it to 5.9.
Yes, sir. So it's taxed on the 888,000. Is what that's what the tax is applied to.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you, how many boats you have said, how many typical boats like this client has that we do in this parish on average?
Well, this year was around 100, if I remember right.
100 boats. Did you do any of them different than what you did
No,
with
sir.
this, Did anybody else protest? To pay their tax?
Not yet?
No, it's not yet.
It's too late.
If I
This is
may respond to your line of questioning, I think the reason it's more burdensome on us as Alliance Offshore, and the reason I'm here, maybe other companies are not, and this was part of my kind of introduction, was that we built our company at the very end of good times. So we overpaid for our vessels, where other companies, if they bought their boats in the 90s or in the 2000s, the early 2000s, they don't have the problems that we had. I have a $10 million starting point that's just blatantly unfair if you look at it in today's, there's no way that those boats are worth that today.
Well,
Other companies may not have that
Let me
problem.
give you a little story here. In 2005, we had a storm come through. His name was Reed. You know, before that, we was rocking and rolling over here in Cameron Parish. Go out and look at them docks right now. And a boat tied up in nowhere. I don't know why you was even here, but anyway. In 2006, all our residents from down south of this parish moved north in the parish. You know what the property value did in our part of the parish? It almost doubled. Because people had to have that land. 4 or 5 years later, they moved back to Cameron. You know what the value of that, you know what they had to give that land away, because they couldn't get what they paid for. Sound like you got in a predicament.
Unfortunately, we don't control the market. We have to live with it, and you make the decisions based on what you have at the time.
I know.
Yeah, Cameron Parish to help you out.
Can we move to the next?
I mean,
one?
just so we do
I
actually,
feel your pain.
we do have
Don't
boats
get me
working
wrong.
in Cameron Parish. The Hawk is one of our OSVs, which is working out of Cameron right now.
I understand.
Okay,
I
hey, we've got enough, I think we've got enough information on this one. I think we need to move forward.
Can we get back to, go to the next vessel, so we can
Yes.
make a decision?
So, and
Oh, we got enough of that?
Yeah, we got another vessel involved in this same one.
yes, so this was the Baton Rouge, and look, we don't have to go over a lot of the same, background and color information, but the assessment on the Rebel was, this is another vessel, we purchased this one in 2014, I believe, and the purchase price for that one was $4.9 million. Again, vessel in demand at the time, a lot of work for it. It was getting about, well, I have the day rate stuff in here. I want to say it was like 6,000 a day or better for that vessel. Go through the downturn, we're down to 3,000 to 4,000 range, basically operating it at a loss, primarily to keep the crew employed. Same thing, so I have an appraisal of that vessel as well, and the appraisal by Rivers and Gulf came back at just above $500,000 in today's market. The vessel had to be sold. So we're asking for, obviously, a reduction in accordance with the expert survey of the vessel. And all of the things behind that, again, I have the vessel day rate utilization information over the last 3 years, profit and loss statement, which I've submitted. That vessel, I want to say, was taxed in Lafourche Parish last year. And in Lafourche, it was assessed at $1.1 million, and the tax bill was $22,888. That was 2016.
And what is their millage rate in the food parish?
Let's see.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, they don't, certainly does on the taxes. I just threw the taxes out there as another basis point of information. They don't have a total millage, but the assessed value, which the millage is based on, the assessed value was $177,360, and that equates to a fair market value of basically $1.1 million. And so the value that I'm currently being assessed on in Cameron Parish is $3.5 million.
So, Mr. Billings,
Yes.
on the assessed value, I'm gonna go back, you on that page,
I'm looking at the assessment.
on the, got some red writing on it. Just take either one, let's go with the first one, $5.9 million. The assessed value is $888,000. How'd you get to $888,000? What are you multiplying, what are you, is it a percentage?
What you're doing is 15% of the market value.
So it's 15% of market value,
All personal property is 15% of the market.
okay? So 15% is that $888,000,
Right,
and then you do your millages after that.
right.
So you give them a 75%, basically, in a way, a 75% discount.
Well, that's the assessment rate.
I know.
That's the assessment rate.
That's depreciation.
Kurt, that's for, the assessor assesses the value on like your house, and then you pay 10% of that assessed value, that's what you're taxed on. And it's the same thing, but this is personal property.
Are you talking about the .74?
I've seen that on one.
Okay, that's set by the tax commission
Okay.
based on the age. So that's the multiplier that we use.
That's
That's the
It's the
depreciation.
That's the
depreciation.
depreciation to the.
And then we gave them additional obsolescence.
That's not.
For the day's work.
Okay.
Which is the way we do it, but
So estimated taxes, what you see is on the Baton Rouge right now is $146,484. They're only wanting to pay $22,764 out of that, is what they're asking.
And just so the council knows, or the jury knows, that we did try to negotiate and come up with an agreement, we just wasn't able to. So maybe there's some ground that we could come to an agreement on. I'm still hopeful that that's possible.
What is the end of result that y'all was trying to, what was the end of the agreement with y'all?
What I can tell you what we offer to accept, in other words, not to prosecute this appeal. I think a fair assessment of Baton Rouge, something I wouldn't appeal would be an assessment of $2 million. On the Rebel, $1.1 million, as opposed to the $500,000 in the survey. Not that I disagree with Mr. Minster, who is the surveyor. I think he's very, very versed, very experienced, and his opinion carries a lot of weight. But what am I willing to say or agree that the fair market value might actually be? I agree that those are the numbers that I could live with.
Mr. Billings, what is your number that you want to stick to the 5.9? Or did, in the negotiations, or did you drop it off?
the obsolescence we gave them was the 20% per day's work.
So you're not willing to
Which
drop
is-
any more?
I would need a lot more
You
information.
jump in here, okay. I'm looking at, $123,720, and $74,429, which comes up to almost $200,000. The company is requesting 22,764 and 12,866, which comes up to, what is that, $35,000?
That's not even half.
So we're you're looking at $200,000 versus $35,000.
And if I can put this in perspective, the Rebel in 2016, not counting depreciation, take that out, lost $88,000.
Okay.
It cost us $88,000 to keep the room going there.
Mr. Orson, I'm gonna go back to Mr. Quinn's question. Are you willing to negotiate with the gentleman any further?
The door's not closed, but
What do you
When
mean
you
by
pay-
it was not
when you
closed?
pay $10 million for investment, 4 years later, you want to be less than $1 million. Like I told him in the email, we're just too far.
Well, I understand that part, but I understand the gentleman's part too. I'm not going against you, Mr. Orson, don't get me wrong. But I understand, this is my opinion, that's just not everybody else talking, this is me talking. I understand the situation, I mean, you know, it got bad.
I
It
did
got
too.
bad for them, okay, it's got bad for all of us. Cameron Parish alone, we've lost millions of dollars, we're in a bind, okay? Our assessors do a very good job, and I think they try to do it as legal as possible. I mean, they use the numbers that they're required to use. So, and my opinion, I gotta go with the assessor, but I do ask the assessor to sit down with you and maybe come up with a different. That's all I'm gonna say.
Let me throw this out there. He has another vessel that's in Cameron, it's under a different name, different company name. I think he paid 1.5 million
No, 150,000,
for it. 150,000.
yes. Which we've not appealing that assessment.
Yeah, we
We're
used,
fine with that.
we assessed it the same way. We used the cost, 150,000, less depreciation, and then the obsolescence for days work.
And this,
Now, if the oil field picks up, and all of a sudden this vessel's worth 10 times that, and they still own this vessel, we're gonna use the cost, less depreciation, less obsolescence for days work.
Where you parked that boat at, the two boats, January 1, 2018?
and
Where they gonna be parked at?
somewhat that may depend on what happens here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Unfortunately, it's just the world that we live in. I can't, last year I paid $83,000 for a vessel. If it had been parked in LaFouche Parish, it would have cost me $20,000. It's just a reality.
But I mean, you start, at some point, you gotta start thinking as a company, as a
Absolutely.
business, and say, look, I don't know if I wanna be here.
And let me shed a little bit, just put some more color on the other vessel that he mentions. It's the Dulac, it's a lift boat. And here's the difference, the reason we don't appeal that or have an issue with that. We bought that vessel in 2016. We bought it in the downturn. The price that we paid for it is reflective of the fair market value today. The price we paid for these vessels was the fair market value in 2013. And it's not the fair market value today. That's why I'm here pleading for help.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that point. I just, at times you want boats to be parked in your port, so you can tax those boats.
Yes.
But if we somehow or another can't figure it out, one day we're gonna not have a boat to tax. I'm afraid. I just think should be some kind of way we can come up with something. You know, I talked to a guy one time, he says, I don't care what they do, I'm gonna always bring my boats to Cameron Parish to get assessed. I wanna pay the taxes in Cameron Parish. Why he said that, I don't know. But he said it, too. But if we keep charging 2 or 3 times the money that they can have them boats ordered in Rebellion or Blackman or somewhere else, that's just money we lose. And we gotta take that into factor, I think.
And listen, when I started in this industry, the owners of the companies that I've worked for have never taken an issue with vessel taxes. Exactly that sentiment. They've always wanted the parishes to have that money. It supports the infrastructure that supports our industry. If there's no ports, there's no offshore oil and gas industry. Right? If the parishes don't have the infrastructure, we're out of business. That was never an issue until the recent years where it's becoming a struggle to come up with the money to pay the taxes. In fact, for this year, I hate that, I'm going to have to go raise the money to pay these taxes. How the final number of what I have to come up with will be the determining factor on whether I can raise the money or not. I'm really here out of desperation.
Hey, okay, well, again, and I'm gonna say this one more time, this is my opinion. I'm gonna ask Mr. Orson's office to work with them. I don't care about seeing them leave the parish. We need them here, and we need all the businesses that we can get here. We need all the taxes that we can get. I know y'all do a good job. I don't know how far you can go. I don't know that legally, what you can do. But I personally, I ask you to help the company out.
Be fair, I mean, if we both
That's all I
have,
can say.
if we both happy at the end of the day, we both win. If one's a little mad and the other one's a little happier, then we both win. But if one's upset and gonna protest it and swear he's never gonna put another boat in our parish to be taxed, that's not good for our parish either. So, I mean, I don't know what to call it, but.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Billings, now, this is a question for, I'm not talking about discussing, I'm talking about meeting. I'm talking about can we get real close to a decision here? I mean, I'm just trying to help here, you know, y'all come in front of the board here, and I'm trying to negotiate with y'all and try to help. And I know that's up to the other guys if they want to go that route. But it's to the point of where every time you turn around, we're tying up money for years and years. And at the end of the day, it's not good. The last one we tied up for 15 years or where it was, at the end of the day, where'd we end up? Wasn't good.
Can we table this?
I mean, that's just my
You got
opinion.
to take action on the protest itself.
You know, I got mine out, y'all.
I'm in agreement with Mr. Quinn, and if y'all can do something like that, and like I said, that's why I asked you, if y'all could sit down and maybe come to a happy medium. I don't know your business, I don't know your business, but I think Mr. Quinn is on the right track. I don't want to see the company leave the parish. I don't want to lose a whole lot of money either, which we're going to lose a lot of money, don't get me wrong, we are. But I think we ought to, the two entities ought to work together and try to come up with a happy medium that both of you can live with.
I'd be happy to talk to Mr. Billings if y'all want to take a brief recess.
We won't take a recess, but
Once we leave.
y'all want to step out and have a discussion, that's up to Mr. Orson. That's up to y'all. We just think that's the smartest thing to do, because we can't afford to lose business, we can't afford to lose money, we're gonna have to make a recess.
Yes.
5-minute recess?
Okay. I have a motion, 5-minute recess by Mr. Falk, second by Mr. Dupont, all in favor? Motion carries.
They got a room. Y'all agree on something, we got some cake. Now y'all get no cake.
We're calling this meeting back in session. Okay,
Where we are is, it's been, 30% has been offered, and we would accept 50, so we haven't come to an agreement. Meaning total obsolescence application to the current assessed value, or the cost of both value. So it's 30% has been offered, and in my opinion, 50% would be acceptable and fair, but not 30%.
30% was offered by Mr. Billings.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that the appeal of Alliance Offshore number 13000840000 and number 13000500205 will continue without date.
I have a motion by Mr. Quinn, continue without date. Second by Mr. Hicks, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We're not done.
One more, no,
We're
we have
not done
one more,
yet.
one more thing.
Oh, yeah,
Approve of the tax roll. This is the tax roll for 2017. You guys should have that in front of you.
we're pretty much the same other than a couple of changes.
Maybe affected by this.
You have the,
If this is negotiated, this would be affected by it, but that's the only change.
Okay, but that's gonna be at a later date, depending on the change.
Right.
Okay?
So we just need to accept it pending, or just,
The outcome.
Yeah.
Darrell, we don't have to, we can accept it as is, or we've got to wait for
I would
this.
say because the tax roll won't be final.
Sir?
The tax roll won't be final until
So that decision's made.
that decision is made.
It could always be done by change order too.
So we can accept this, and then
Yes.
there'll be a change order for, because that's how it would be.
Right.
Because we wouldn't have a protest, they'd have a change order. So
so I move to
we
accept
agree that, yes, to accept the 2017.
2017 tax roll.
Moved by Mr. Quinn to accept, second by Mr. Park, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Is there anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Move to adjourn by Mr. Quinn, second by Mr. Parker, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank y'all for.
Thank you.
Y'all work this out, please.
Just keep working hard.
Don't go work it out.